Good evening. My name is Paulina Oliveira. My advisory teacher was Ms. Lovejoy, and I did my senior project on firefighting. Before I start my actual presentation about my research paper and my activity, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about myself. So the next slide. I'm 17 years old. I'm the youngest of 6. Technically, I only have one biological brother, and my parents adopted 4 kids before we were born. I was born in Mexico. I am the first of my siblings to attend to college. My mom went to college in Mexico and got her law degree. My family is obviously very important. We moved to the United States when I was 13. I entered 8th grade, and it was a big change for me. It was, I think, the biggest change for me, and the change that kind of wiggled my life around. My mom brought me to the United States so I could learn how to speak English, and because of that, I decided that I was only going to speak English in school and not to her. So I only spoke Spanish to my mom and English to my friends. So as punishment for me, instead of thinking that I was going to go back to Mexico because I didn't speak English, she said that we were going to stay another year. So we stayed another year, and then we just went through high school because I was going to have better opportunities to go to college here. My project. I chose firefighting. Obviously, growing up in Mexico, you see in the movies firefighters and in the TVs firefighters, they're heroes. They're the ones that people go and ask for help, and the ones that are always there to help. In Mexico, firefighters are not as well known as they are here. So my passion for firefighting came while watching TV shows and movies, and I wanted to learn what they did. I wanted to see what they actually did in person, get in a truck and see what they did and see how they learned and what they had to do to learn. And when I was in Mexico, firefighting was just over. I didn't think I was going to be able to be a firefighter or experience what firefighters do. So when I came and I had the opportunity to think about my senior project, I was debating on what I was going to do, what I had to choose from, and I got the opportunity to be in Mr. Lyons' English class. He was a firefighter before he was a teacher, and he incorporated a lot of his firefighting experiences to our class. So I thought that why not? He rekindled that passion of mine that I had about firefighting, and I decided to ask him if he would be my mentor, and he did, and so I chose my senior project on firefighting. My thesis statement is basically talking about women in the fire department. Obviously, being a woman, I wanted to see if there were actually women in the fire department, and if there were, how many, and if they were treated the same way as firefighters that were male. And so I focused on women in the fire department, and I learned lots of stuff during when I was writing my research paper about history of women in the fire department and about myself and what I thought women were capable of doing. And obviously, if they're able to be moms and doctors and teachers, I feel like they're able to be firefighters. It takes as much passion as they do, and I feel like even if we're not strong as men like they think they are, I think if we put ourselves to do that, that we can do as much as we want and that we can become what we want. Some facts that I found interesting are in the next slide. Approximately 5,200 women work as full-time firefighters. I thought there would be less just because they're not really noticed in the firefighting department. San Francisco has 11.7% of the firefighters are women. It's not a large number, but it's actually one of the largest numbers that there is. And it was really cool to know that women in the fire department were so close to me and that it was one of the largest ones that we had. The first firefighter was Molly Williams. She was the first firefighter in 1815 in New York, and she was African American. I always think that there's one person to break the gender, and I feel like she broke the gender rule of just men being firefighters. So people then followed her footsteps and then became And then women have been firefighters for almost 200 years. I thought they were just gonna be like barely started, you know, like maybe 50 years, but it goes back to World War II when they had to take over the jobs for men and become the firefighters. For my activity, I shadowed the firefighters. I shadowed at the Glen Ellen Firehouse, Elbridge Firehouse. I got to meet Captain Tom Dealey, and I went in and he explained everything about the firehouse, how they have to always be ready and how the alarm sounds and where they have their rooms, where they shower. He also showed me around the trucks and the engines and the ambulances. They're in charge of the Sonoma Hospital, so they're the first responders there, so they have keys to every room, and if there's an emergency there, they're the ones that go there. They're also first responders for the wilderness fires that happen around there, so they have a smaller truck than the others. And they also have the biggest engine in the Sonoma County Fire Department that holds the most water than others. After I shadowed firefighters for a little while, I did a presentation to kids of what I had learned in the firehouses and what I had learned about firefighters. And I also talked to them about my senior year and what I was gonna do in the future and why I wanted to do firefighting and why I chose firefighting for my senior project presentation. I also wrote a booklet. A booklet is typically just papers that are stapled together, but since I'm gonna leave it at the College and Career Center, I put it in the binder like you guys can see, and it talks about my experience throughout this whole senior project. Is really honest. I talk about my hardships and what was hard for me during senior project and what was the most fun. And I also talk about the history behind firefighting. I also put there a schedule that firefighters have. It's obviously prone to change if they have any emergencies, but it's what they do and what they're supposed to do. And so if they go to an emergency, they leave everything that they're doing and then they come back and start doing all their jobs again. It also talks about the education that firefighters need, and obviously if you have a higher education, you're prone to get hired better than if you just have a high school diploma. My learning stretch, I wanted to increase my confidence, talking to my mentor, talking to strangers that were then gonna become the people that I was gonna shadow, and presenting in front of little kids. I think it was more nerve-wracking for me to present in front of small kids than in front of a panel of judges, just because I needed to change how I was gonna present to them so they could understand what I was actually gonna say. Communication skills in front of crowds, with my mentor, getting to be able to go to the firehouse and visit it, and I also interviewed a woman firefighter at the Elbridge Firehouse, so I had to learn how to do an interview and ask her the questions that I wanted to. I learned about the career that I wanted and that was always my passion, and I think that was the most important one for me. I wanted to see if it was gonna be for me or if it could be for me for the future. And I expressed my feelings in the book. Expressing my feelings hasn't always been the easiest thing, so if something was hard, I just kept it in and then just kind of went with the flow and did it and never actually complained or anything. So I expressed everything because I want other people to know what actually senior project is and that there is hardships, but at the end, it teaches you a lot about yourself and a lot about techniques that you need for the future and for college. What I learned, time management to turn everything on time, research paper, letter to the judges, portfolio, responsibility to not forget it at home and have to turn it on time. I had to find research, I had to find my mentor, I had to find research for my senior project, for my research paper, communication skills, and my confidence. I think it's the one that's repeated most because it's the one that increased the most and is the one that was most important for me. And I feel like that's why it's like so important to me that it's throughout my whole presentation. What I learned about myself, that I can become and am really independent. I tried to find resources by myself, and then if I couldn't find, I would talk to my mentor, or if I was having problems with research paper, I would go talk to other teachers, or if I was having trouble with just in general senior project, I would go talk to the people in charge. Responsibility, to be able to turn everything on time and to know that there are deadlines and that I have to have it done by that time. And I learned never to give up. I had to rewrite my research paper 7 times, I think. And at some point I just wanted to give up. I just wanted to not do it again. I thought if I had worked so hard, why hadn't it passed, if I was doing something wrong? And at some point I was just not gonna do anything, but then I thought that if I had worked so hard for 4 years in high school and this was gonna be the one that destroyed what I had worked for so long. So I went and asked for help, and for 2 weeks straight I worked with my English teacher to actually pass it, and I did. And so when I passed it, it was like the most relief I had forever, because I just needed to do this presentation and I was over with my high school career. My future. I'm attending Colby Sawyer in New Hampshire with the Fulbright Scholarship. I want to travel around the world. I want to get to know new cultures, new people, and get to know about myself when I'm in new cultures and meeting new people. And I've gotten the opportunity to do community service, and it's something that I really enjoy doing, and so I want to give to this community and to others that are in need. And so I feel like that's what I want to do, and I have the time to do it. And, well, are there any questions? The most challenging aspect of senior project was, for me, research paper. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of dedication, and it takes a lot of your knowledge from English classes. And for me, at some points I had to translate from Spanish to English just because Spanish is my first language. So sometimes what I wanted to say in English wasn't what I was actually trying to say in Spanish, so it sounded really awkward. So I had to get a lot of help on my research paper, and it was the most stressful time to get to pass my research paper. Yeah, if I could do it over again, the whole senior project, I think I would get a head start, maybe during the summer, maybe just at the beginning of school, even if research paper is not due, to ask for help with my English teacher or with the mentor that could help me, so I wouldn't have to deal a lot with what I dealt and having to turn it in so many times. If I could give advice to students of choosing their topics, I think it would be something that they're really passionate about, something that they're going to be able to speak to others about and actually make them understand what they learned, and that make them understand that that's something they love to do and that they want to learn more about, and it'll make the process more fun for them too and more easy for them to finish senior project. I think that senior project was, I mean, for me, I turned everything on time, so I didn't really have any punishments, but I feel like it should just be like if they don't turn it in on time, they have to do extra work, like maybe come after school to get help because they don't have it, or they just have to get like their privilege taken away like they did. But I feel like overall, for me, senior project was dealt with really good. I mean, we had a lot of help during our advisories, and all the teachers were open for us to help. And so I feel like there was a lot of help, but some people just don't reach out for it. So I feel like if I did give advice to teachers, to let them know, the students, that they're there for help and that their door is always open for them to come and ask for help, because sometimes it's scary for us to go and, tell them that you're struggling with something.